Rick, but I want to, so they picked up what you were saying about Germany, but one thing I want to follow up with, in terms of the additional bombings that you've seen, the additional airstrikes going after the oil tankers and trucks, a lot of this, it begs the question, is something that John Bussey brought up earlier. Why now? Because it seems like we should have been doing this weeks, if not months ago, and we had the capability of doing this. We should be doing this. And now all of a sudden everybody wants to be involved.
Look, the fact is we have old intelligence. You get old intelligence when you don't have boots on the ground. This political promise to not put boots on the ground from President Obama, it sounds good when you're in the cornfields of Iowa in 2008 and you're trying to convince people that you're going to be a president that's different than President Bush. But the fact is when you commit to not putting U.S. men and women on the ground, you're committing to having old, untimely information. That's just the facts. So what we're trying to do is know where to drone, know where to bomb, know with precision exactly where the targets are, know where the command and control center is. The only way to do that is to coordinate your intelligence so that there's also human intelligence on the ground that can say, hey, Joe, start bombing from the air over in this specific place. That's exactly how human intelligence works. As
evidence of that, we were in the strikes that were done on oil facilities, the Islamic State controlled oil facilities. We were going after refineries when ISIS increasingly was not refining the raw crude, was not refining the raw product. They were selling the crude to people who wanted to buy it, or individuals and organizations that wanted to buy it. And we were basically making unnecessary strikes and not really making a dent on the oil revenue.
Yeah, again, that's old information. We're not there to see what they're doing with the oil, see where they're shipping it, where they're pulling it out, who's buying it. The only way that comes is from human intelligence. You can't just rely on satellite imagery. You can't not just rely on a drone campaign and pretend like it's going to work. Look, we arrived at some safe houses to rescue some U.S. hostages, only to find that they had left those safe houses like 3 or 4 days earlier.
Well, Rick, it's Cheryl Casone, really quick. I asked this earlier and I didn't get an answer. If we go with troops on the ground against ISIS, what kind of number is that? Because 50 doesn't work.
50 doesn't work. I'm not a military expert. I think you got to listen to your generals. The generals are saying things like 5 to 10,000. Right. I would go with your best general and just use their expertise.
John, do you want to ask one more question?
Rick, Cheryl and Dagen and Kevin and I were talking about this when you were off air for a second. Look, now you have France, Germany, the rest of Europe, essentially, because of the terrorism threat there. The United States, Russia, all focusing on Syria, particularly and on Iraq secondarily. Turkey's involved. Even China has a bit more, skin in this game at this point. Is that a good thing from your standpoint, that there's this kind of an international effort forming that could really kind of put the squeeze on this area? Or is it a Tower of Babel that's taking shape?
Well, it depends on which issue. I mean, when it comes to Assad staying, it's a Tower of Babel because we really have large countries with difference of opinion. When it comes to fighting ISIS, everybody says that they want to defeat ISIS, so we should be able to do it. Let's get intelligence in there and let's crush them. Let's use the Powell Doctrine, which is use overwhelming force when you decide to go in. We're not doing that. I've always been worried at this press conference where John Kerry and the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, got together and pretended like everything was fine and that they were coordinating. We knew that there was no possible way that we were agreeing, especially when you just see that two major powers disagree about whether or not Assad should stay. But they pretended at that press conference that we're all coordinated and we're all on the same page, and it just seemed crazy, especially now in the light of the Turkish-Russian, problem here, the military problem. So we need to coordinate more, and I think we need to face the music. We have a difference of opinion on what to do with Assad, and yet two major powers have major operations, air and about to be ground, there inside Syria. That is a recipe for disaster. We must coordinate more, and I think that's why the Germans are stepping in to kind of take control. The U.S. usually wouldn't allow that, but we have no leadership in Washington, D.C. There's no U.S. leadership at NATO or at the UN. Our ambassador is missing at votes post-Paris, the resolution at the UN. Samantha Power wasn't even there for the discussion. She wasn't there for the vote. It's really ridiculous how the U.S. coordination is just completely gone.
Rick, it was so good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Richard Grenell, I
Thanks,
hope the weather will be more lovely there than anywhere else in the country, I can guarantee you
can
that.
guarantee it will be.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays.